This is the MrSan44Man Detroit Raw Show, only on YouTube, a PIE Productions. And now, MrSan44Man. What's up, world? It's your man, MrSan44Man, seen in 80+ countries around the world. Check this out. We down to that point. I had a lot of other videos that was going on just because the Boston situation was jumping off, and that was really more important to precedent anything that I had going on, because, you know, we're glad that these terrorists that came from Russia, these young kids, that they, you know, they're dealt with, and you know what I'm saying, and everybody can go back to their normal life, I think. But what I wanted to really say today is, y'all remember that I gave y'all that video about the racist comment that I received from Corn Fed. I call him Cornbread Fed, from the Klux Klan. Yeah, I told you, player, I'm back. I'm MrSan44Man. I'm very dangerous on this social network. You gotta watch what you say to me. But I'm gonna let you know this. I'm gonna show you all something that's gonna make America understand that this is what the problem is with us as black people. You look at this video, and this is gonna be some time, y'all. I might try to break this off into a 2 or 3 part episode, but I'm about to show you the history of the Ku Klux Klan. Matter of fact, I'm about to show you the birth of the Ku Klux Klan. Okay? Courtesy of the History Channel. Whoever it was at the History Channel, I really appreciate you. Because not only are you getting ready to educate black people, or have educated black people, because I filmed this or recorded this courtesy of the History Channel. I want you to understand this. Whoever at the History Channel put that together and made that happen possible, I applaud you. Thank you very much, because what you've done is going to help me to do what I'm going to do to help all the people around the world understand why we are in the predicament that we are in America. Slavery in America was a very lucrative business. See, you got to respect the skin tone, because the skin tone carved this country. For you out there that are on top of the world, if it wasn't for this skin tone to build and carve this country back in the ancestry days, you wouldn't be enjoying your lavish lifestyle that you are receiving right now off the backs, sweats, and tears of this skin tone. This goes all the way to our federal government. What you are about to see is going to make some people mad, especially on the black people end. But for you white people that are out there, you Latino people that are out there, that you Asian people that are out there, that you German people that are out there, especially Germany, all Jews should sit back and witness this, just like you had genocide in your country of Germany with Hitler. This is America. I'm about to expose to you the worst terrorist group, domestic, in United States of American history. This is your man, MrSan44Man. Y'all stand back and watch this, and you'll understand why black men are jumping on their black women because they don't have no money, why the black woman is looked upon and she's the provider and the black man is totally out of the equation. You're about to see this on the MrSan44Man Detroit Raw Show. It's going down, y'all. I don't want to say you enjoy it, but please, Get your kids, get your family members, even though this is on a computer, put this on your TV, connect it. We know YouTube can go on your TV screen. Hook it up to your TV. Put your family together for this presentation. Because out of all the 800 and something videos, 800 and some videos out of 80-something countries that I'm seen in, I'm about to expose to the world the birth of the Ku Klux Klan.
The country's oldest terrorist organization. It's engaged in murder, intimidation, violence, rape, pillage, and worse kinds of crimes.
The history of the Ku Klux Klan is a chronicle of hate in America.
The legacy of the Ku Klux Klan has been white terrorism. We've had a lot of hangings, a lot of bombings, a lot of shootings. That don't bother me at all.
The story of the Klan is one of secrecy, ritual, and misconception.
It was founded as a purely social fraternity, very much like a college fraternity, purely as a source of amusement.
It wrapped itself in the sacred cloth of Christianity and the hallowed fabric of the American flag, becoming the great fraternal organization of the 1920s.
You had governors and senators and legislators elected with the Klan's blessing, and you also had Chief Justice Black of the U.S. Supreme Court. He joined the Klan because he felt it was kind of necessary.
It resurrected itself to combat the civil rights movement and launched a violent revolt against the onrushing tide of black equality. Its leaders sought to mask the terror, but the face of intolerance has always dwelled behind the hood. They are a part of American history we would like to forget, but we cannot. We should not.
You can see a number of groups who are like the Klansmen, but they simply are not wearing the white sheets.
The Ku Klux Klan, a secret history. Assembles to preach its gospel of white supremacy.
Good morning, Jackson. We are the Ku Klux Klan. We hate niggers, we hate Jews, we hate faggots, and we hate spicks. We don't have to have a reason to hate them just because they breathe. We hate the filthy bugs. You people need to get off here and wake up. This is America. The niggers are taking it over on the Jews. Make a stand. Join the Klan. White power! White power! White power! And I hate Jews. I hate them because they exist. I hate them because they breathe. I hate them because they're scum. The niggers are the scum of the earth. White power! White power! White power!
Today, the combustible discourse of the Klan plays to sparse crowds. But there was a time when millions of Americans embraced the ideology of the invisible empire. A time when scores of men, women, and children bowed down in a sacred oath of allegiance to the Hooded Order, an oath virtually unchanged for over 130 years. The heart of the Klan creed has always been the separation and purity of the white race.
They want to throw white children and colored children into the melting pot of integration, out of which will come a conglomerated, a lot of mongrel class of people.
Times have changed. The message has not.
That's right.
Look out, nigger! The Klan is getting bigger. What power?
Since its inception, the Klan has risen to battle enemies perceived as a threat to the white race, to battle issues the Klan saw as disruptive to the proper social order.
They say it's hate and racist. Racist is psychological. I guess everybody's racist one way or another. There is some hate and animosity. We don't like what the government's doing to us. They're cutting down the white race.
But the Klan is more complex than a simple diatribe of racial hatred. Men and women join for a sense of belonging, a sense of ritual, a sense of kinship.
A Klansman swears to his God, race, and nation. And when he takes an oath, he takes oath for his brothers. This is my blood. This is my family. What you see here is my people. This is my blood. This is my race. These are my brothers right here, man. Right here.
And I gotta say, I love the state of Florida.
The devotion to their own is based on a common bond, a common philosophy, a precept of exclusion. It is a bond that brings Klan families together in social gatherings not unlike those other families enjoy. But these affairs are different. They possess the undercurrent that has run through every era of Klan activity, the threat of intimidation, of violence.
I don't care what we gotta do. You come after me, I'll kill you. You know, plain flat words. You mess with me, I'll kill you. You come after a member of my family, I'll kill you. I'm not against using anything, any means, any way in order to get our message and our views across. Whatever means necessary.
From its birth, the Klan has claimed to be a defender of virtue, the protector of white womanhood, the champion of Christian morals. Masking itself in religion, the Klan stole the holiest of Christian symbols and made it their own. Since 1915, the burning of the cross has been a sacred Klan ceremony.
You know, a lot of people say, well, you're burning the cross, that's disgracing God. And it ain't disgracing God. We don't burn them, we light them for the glorify the light of Jesus Christ to come back from the world of darkness to light. That's the reason we light them.
The cross-lighting ceremony is a mix of ritual, religion, and racial rambling.
It is dark now. Out of the darkness comes the light. The whole world does not understand the Klan. They have mess about it. They have misunderstanding. We are for the white race only. You see, one light becomes many lights. The eternal light. The eternal light of the Ku Klux Klan.
But you choose to accept the light? Yes, sir.
No niggers, no parasitic, blood-sucking Jews, just white people. White people with damn mad white people with fire. That's what it's all about. For God! For God! For the white race! For the white race! For our children! For our children! For the American Knights of the Ku Klux Klan!
The Klan crosses are ignited to the sound of one of the holiest of Christian hymns.
The cross is the most distinct symbol in the world. Everybody knows what a cross is. Okay, we light it. So when it's lit, the light upon Jesus Christ shines down upon the Klan and blesses them.
Let these crosses burn into your souls as they have so many other people. That's why we're here, folks. Fire in the night.
In the aftermath of the Civil War, much of the South lay in ruins. Confederate soldiers returned home to find the landscape ravaged. It was in this atmosphere of despair that 6 Confederate veterans gathered at a local law office in the poverty-stricken town of Pulaski, Tennessee. On a June night in 1866, the Ku Klux Klan was born. Surprisingly, the origins of the Klan had little to do with the menacing behavior for which it would become known.
It was founded as a purely social fraternity, very much like a college fraternity, but without the college, purely as a source of amusement.
Using the home of a prominent Pulaski citizen as a meeting place, the founders were bursting with ideas for the new brotherhood they had formed.
They were college men, and college students learned their Greek and Latin, and so they picked a Greek word, Klux, meaning circle, and found it had great alliterative possibilities, added Klan to it. Ku Klux Klan, isn't that a wonderful sound?
To further the mystery, the founders decreed that all public appearances were to be made in disguise. Outlandish costumes consisting of flowing sheets, masks, and hats were devised. Absurd-sounding titles such as Grand Cyclops and Grand Magi were created for office holders. New members were to be called ghouls. The founders presented themselves to the town with theatrical flair. The sight of costumed men parading through the streets of Pulaski piqued curiosity. Local men were quick to join. As the Klan grew, mysterious night rides began. The early rides took on a supernatural aspect. Attempting to frighten newly freed slaves, hooded Klansmen claimed to be ghosts of Confederate dead. At first, the night rides produced little violence. But that would change as new Klan leaders realized the hooded order might be used to wage a secret war against the Yankee governments of Reconstruction. Before the Civil War, generations of white Southerners had been raised on the principles of white supremacy. It was an ideal that neither military defeat nor the abolishment of slavery could destroy. At war's end, Southern state legislatures passed measures designed to maintain white superiority. These laws, known as Black Codes, severely curtailed the newly freed slaves' civil rights, in effect, returning them to a state of bondage and making them second-class citizens. In response, angry congressional Republicans passed the Reconstruction Act of 1867, a strict set of laws which temporarily abolished Southern state governments, divided the South into military districts, and gave blacks the right to vote. The defeated South again felt invaded by Northern authority. White supremacy was threatened. Soon after passage of the Reconstruction Act, Klan leaders from all of Tennessee held a secret meeting in Nashville. The man granted control of the Klan was Nathan Bedford Forrest, former Confederate general and outspoken critic of Republican Reconstruction. By spring of 1868, the Klan had spread from Tennessee to every southern state. They embarked on a campaign of terror, a war of clandestine attacks. The purpose? To intimidate newly freed blacks and keep them from the voting booths.
The Reconstruction Klansman saw himself as the only vehicle to restore the Southern way of life and social order that had been disrupted by the Civil War. How do we put these outsiders in their place, these uppity blacks, through terror?
The first tactic was usually a warning, a threatening message left on the door of a target. When intimidation failed, the Klan resorted to violent acts. The most common abuse was flogging. Under the cover of night, victims were tied and whipped with tree branches. Some blacks incurred hundreds of lashings. Many died as a result.
The spectacle of these hooded night riders with these horrific-looking costumes was enough to terrorize people. And then they took people out, they tied them to trees, they beat them, they flogged them, they lynched them, they burned them out. Almost anything they were capable of doing, and they did it.
Amidst the carnage, Klan victims had little recourse. The majority of public opinion was in sympathy with the objectives of the Klan, if not always the methods they used. The Klan was able to terrorize with virtual immunity. From the onset of violence, General Forrest claimed to be against the terror. In January of 1869, he ordered the Klan disbanded, its records destroyed, its robes burned. Some local clans adhered to the order. Many did not. Several Southern governors enlisted their state militias to battle the Klan. The efforts produced mixed results. In the early 1870s, Congress passed the Enforcement Act and the Ku Klux Act. These laws made it a felony for two or more persons to conspire or go in disguise with the intent to deprive an individual of any civil right or privilege. When President Hayes officially ended Reconstruction in 1876, the last vestiges of the Klan disappeared. A victim of federal investigations, prosecutions, and in some ways, its own success. The end of Reconstruction signaled the beginning of a new racial caste system in the South, separate and unequal. A system that would remain in place for 100 years. The numbers of blacks murdered in this era will never be accurately known, but the carnage inflicted by the Klan was staggering. Certainly hundreds were killed, thousands injured. As the 20th century dawned, the Ku Klux Klan was a fading memory. Recollections of the hooded order were tainted by popular literature, which portrayed the invisible empire as an heroic force, simply battling to maintain the proper social order. This fanciful remembrance would help fuel the Klan's revival. On Thanksgiving Eve, 1915, 16 men gathered atop Stone Mountain in Georgia. As night fell, a towering cross was ignited and the Ku Klux Klan was reborn. The organizer of the spectacle was a preacher-turned-salesman named William Joseph Simmons.
Colonel William J. Simmons was a failed Methodist clergyman who had left the cloth in order to become a fraternal organizer.
Simmons claimed the idea of starting a new Klan came to him in a vision. The birth of the group was simply a matter of timing. The moment arrived with the release of one of the greatest cinematic achievements of its time. days following the Stone Mountain Cross burning, The Birth of a Nation was released in the South. D.W. Griffith's film played to sold-out theaters. The filmmaking was flawless. The history was not.
In The Birth of the Nation, the Klan is a heroic force. It is the defender of white womanhood against the ravages of the newly freed slaves, these animals, these beasts, whose main purpose in life is to ravage white women. It's a heroic force. It's a noble force.
In the film's climactic scene, a group of hooded Klansmen ride to the rescue of the film's imperiled heroine as she is threatened by lust-crazed black men.
Black Americans reacted to Birth of the Nation with horror, with protest, with demonstrations. It was an assault on Black America at a time when there were no depictions of black people as human beings. This depicted us as beasts and depicted these criminals as heroes and saviors.
Despite its historical inaccuracies, the film gained legitimacy after President Woodrow Wilson screened the epic in the White House. It is like writing history with lightning, the president said. My only regret is that it is also terribly true.
The effect of the film was enormous. It increased hatred toward blacks. It made people believe in the history that was portrayed in it. Even Unitarian ministers endorsed it. And it just had a great effect on changing people's attitudes toward blacks and convincing them that these people really do need to be controlled.
At his Atlanta home, Simmons mapped out the vehicle of control in a manual called the Koran. The handbook described the Klan's secret rites, rituals, and oaths. It defined the meanings of strange names created for Klan ceremonies, regents, and officers. Simmons bestowed upon himself the title of Imperial Wizard, Emperor of the Invisible Empire. As Simmons set forth to build his kingdom, he found recruits hard to come by. But Klan publicists devised a sales pitch based on the slogan, 100% Americanism. The new Klan would be a patriotic organization for American-born white Protestants only. It was no longer enough for the Klan to be anti-black. It now added Jews, Catholics, and immigrants to its list of enemies. The recruitment strategy was a spectacular success. Within 15 months, the Klan enrolled more than 100,000 new members. The Klan had tapped a fear in millions of Americans.
In the 20s, a strong portion of America felt invaded. They felt invaded by immigrants. Catholics were growing in number, and they felt that America was no longer the America they knew. And so there was a strong feeling that they wanted to restore the America they knew. And the Klan promised them that too.
But as the Klan grew, so did its problems. Rumors spread about Klan leadership misappropriating funds. Rank-and-file Klansmen took to heart the fiery rhetoric being used to increase membership, and acts of violence began to occur. The Klan was rocked by bad press in 1921. Based on information supplied by a former Klan recruiter, the New York World newspaper ran a scathing Klan expose. The paper detailed Klan atrocities and financial irregularities. In response, Congress held hearings into Klan activities. The star witness, Imperial Wizard Simmons, denied all accusations and dazzled the senators. The committee adjourned without taking any action. Amazingly, the investigations had the opposite effect from which they were intended. Simmons claimed the publicity was instrumental in the growth of the Klan.
It wasn't until the newspapers began to attack the Klan that it really grew. Certain newspapers aided us by inducing Congress to investigate us. The result was that Congress gave us the best advertising we ever got. Congress made us.
The Klan saw themselves as patriotic.
The phrase that
they hate the most is all manner of created equal.
If you wanted to get elected to office, you had to have a Klan endorsement.
Most Americans would be surprised at the number of their prominent men who were a part of the Klan.
Riding a wave of publicity from the newspaper exposés and congressional hearings, the Klan burst out of the South in an incredible surge of growth. Klaverns arose in every state of the Union. New members willingly paid a $10 initiation fee for the privilege of donning the robe and hood. Klan recruiters used the Protestant church to their full advantage. They persuaded local ministers to join the Klan by offering free membership and a position of leadership. Klansmen would then make a mysterious call on the congregation.
With prior arrangement by the minister, they would appear during the service on Sunday morning, make a donation to the church, which the minister would receive and bless, and then they would withdraw, and the people would know that the Klan was now in town.
When the Klan wrapped its message in the sacred symbols of Christianity and the hallowed cloth of the American flag, it found new members easily induced to join.
In order to recruit, the Klan has to have a message that's palatable. And if the Klan message was, join the Klan and we'll lynch a black, or we'll burn a building, very few people would join the Klan. So the Klan kind of cloaks its goals in good and Christian and right and moral and just and patriotic purposes.
By 1922, 3 million white Americans had joined the Hooded Order. The stereotype of Klan members as unschooled and savage is inaccurate. Klan membership in the 1920s represented a cross-section of the white Protestant community. At the same time American women were demanding equal rights, women who supported Klan ideals demanded entrance into the invisible empire. Their overtures resulted in the formation of the Women of the Ku Klux Klan and other women Klan organizations. At its height, 500,000 women were members of the Ku Klux Klan. With millions now counting themselves as members of the Hooded Order, the Ku Klux Klan became the great social organization for much of white Protestant America in the 1920s. The Klan demonstrated its popularity with its own form of pageantry, Main Street parades. The marches were exhibitions of might and spectacle. As Klan membership rolls grew, so did its political power. In the national arena, the Klan helped to elect 16 United States senators, 5 of whom were sworn Klan members. One of the 5, Hugo Black, recanted his allegiance when he later became a Supreme Court justice. From California to New Jersey, voters elected Klan-backed candidates to a variety of statewide and local offices.
You couldn't run for public office in some places unless you had the Klan endorsement and Klan support, because it had this enormous membership and it enjoyed the sympathy of non-members who may not have always condoned the most horrific and brutal acts, but who thought the Klan served a role in helping tamp down these dissident elements in society.
Philosophy was one of exclusion. The groups on the out, blacks, Catholics, and Jews, were subject to intimidation, economic boycott, and violence. While the majority of members abstained from vigilantism, the Klan was responsible for episodes of racial and religious terror. Most crimes transpired in the South, but Klan intimidation was felt nationwide. Most violence was directed at blacks. They were subject to beatings, floggings, and at times, murder. But the Klan mission of the 1920s was broader than the intimidation of African Americans. Portland, Oregon's exalted Cyclops once observed, "The only way to cure a Catholic is to kill him." While few Klansmen advocated the murder of Catholics, the anti-Catholic sentiment was a lure for new members. Because of their abundant numbers, Catholics bore the brunt of Klan religious terrorism. But those of the Jewish faith were equally despised by the Klan. The Klan was able to operate outside the law because in many communities its members were the law. In the last half of 1922, Morehouse Parish, Louisiana was run by the Klan. Because the Hooded Order had infiltrated law enforcement, Klansmen were confident they could get away with anything, even murder. In the midst of rampant Klan vigilantism, 2 outspoken critics of the Klan were murdered, their bodies thrown into a river. Realizing the Klan controlled the town, a desperate Governor John M. Parker appealed to the U.S. Justice Department for help.
Due to activities of the Klan, men have been taken out, beaten, and whipped. 2 men have been brutally murdered. These conditions are beyond the control of the governor of this state. A number of law officers are publicly recognized as members of the Ku Klux Klan.
After Justice Department agents discovered the victims' mutilated bodies, the Klan was rescued by the legal system. 2 all-white grand juries, each containing known Klan members, heard overwhelming evidence that identified the guilty. Neither jury brought indictments. In the midst of Klan terror, voices of dissent were raised. Some states began to fight back with anti-Klan legislation. The most popular law forbade the wearing of masks in public, but these efforts did little to curtail Klan activity. As the Klan weathered external assaults, an internal coup toppled Imperial Wizard Simmons. The leader of the revolt, a Texas dentist named Hiram Evans, seized command of the Invisible Empire. Although power struggles and scandals sullied its image, in many parts of the country the Klan was just reaching its pinnacle of prestige. The greatest success story of American Klandom was taking shape in Indiana. In the end, it would also be one of the Klan's most despicable stories of horror. The Klan dream of complete political power came to fruition not in the South, but in Indiana. The Hooded Order's rise and fall in the Hoosier State was orchestrated by David Curtis Stevenson.
David Curtis Stevenson was a very talented charlatan and an acute businessman. And when the Klan started in a very, very small way in the southern part of the state, he realized the potential for it.
Stevenson championed the purity of womanhood, strongly supported prohibition, and sold the Klan as a Christian political organization. As a result, over 350,000 Indiana residents joined. This large Klan voting bloc allowed Stevenson to take over Indiana's political apparatus. In the 1924 Indiana election, almost every Republican candidate was handpicked by Stevenson.
Stevenson had an interesting technique. He made candidates sign little pledges that in order for the Klan's support, they would support him. So basically, he had these elected officials in his pocket on signed paper.
Stevenson-backed candidates swept to victory in the November elections. The Klan elected the governor, controlled both houses of the legislature, and Klan candidates won a variety of local political offices. Stevenson was at the height of political power, but in less than a year, he would be confined to a state penitentiary, serving a life sentence. On a March night in 1925, Stevenson ordered his aides to bring 28-year-old Madge Oberholzer to his Indianapolis home. Oberholzer was one of many women in whom Stevenson had a sexual interest. After forcing her to drink with him, Stevenson whisked Oberholzer away to a private train car.
He took her on the train where Stevenson got more drunk, and he raped her. He not only raped her, he chewed her like a cannibal, put her near death. They stopped off before Chicago in a town called Hammond, and she was bleeding, she was crying, and she was scared to death.
Distraught, Oberholzer ingested tablets of the toxic chemical mercuric chloride. On the drive home, a spiteful Stevenson refused to obtain medical attention for the critically ill woman. "I'll have the law on you," Oberholzer cried, to which Stevenson replied, "I am the law in Indiana." Stevenson held Oberholzer captive in his garage apartment overnight. The following day, aides drove the woman home, but the lack of medical treatment was costly.
When her doctor came over, he found that she had been chewed to pieces, that she was suffering kidney failure, and that she wouldn't be able to live much longer.
In her last days, Madge Oberholzer single-handedly destroyed the most powerful man in the state of Indiana. In a deathbed statement, she testified she had been beaten and raped by D.C. Stevenson. Oberholzer's signature sealed the Klan leader's fate. 17 days later, the critically ill woman died. Stevenson was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. He remained smug. Surely no jury would convict the leader of the great Klan state of Indiana. But on November 11, 1925, an Indiana jury found Stevenson guilty and sentenced him to life in prison. Stevenson was confident the governor would grant him a pardon, but the Klan leader was shunned by those who owed him favors. Stevenson had a card left to play, 2 small black boxes. Inside was evidence of the political misdeeds, bribes, and illegal promises candidates made to elicit Klan support. When no one came to his aid, Stevenson had associates release the contents of the black box. The fallout was dramatic. Governor Ed Jackson was charged with bribery. The mayor of Indianapolis was sent to prison. Hundreds of Republicans had their careers ruined. The Stevenson affair was a crushing blow to the Klan, not only in Indiana, but nationally.
The downfall of Stevenson showed the essential hypocrisy and lies of the Klan. They championed the purity of American womanhood. They championed Christianity. They championed prohibition. And here is Stevenson, violating all the three in about the worst way possible.
In an effort to shine a more positive light on the Ku Klux Klan, Imperial Wizard Evans staged the grandest of all Klan public spectacles. To symbolize the Klan's national power, Evans chose the nation's capital as the location for the largest ever Klan parade. On August 8, 1925, Evans led 40,000 robed Klansmen from around the country down Pennsylvania Avenue. was, however, the last hurrah of Klandom in the 1920s. The scandals, negative press, and violence began to exact a toll. Disturbed by the extent of the brutality, mass defections of Klansmen began. Membership, over 4 million in 1925, plummeted to just several hundred thousand by 1928.
I don't think there can be any question that the Klan destroyed itself. The Klan came in as a reformer, but the Klansmen did not live up to this, and at every state it tore itself apart through the immorality and timed the violence.
The demise of the 1920s era Klan did not signal the death of the hooded order. A splintered empire lay under the surface, waiting to rise again. As the country struggled through the Great Depression, Klan membership dwindled to about 100,000. The Klan's enemy list shifted in the 1930s. Communists and unions replaced Catholics at the top of the hate slate. The center of Klan activity shifted back to the South. The National Klan Organization was dealt a fatal blow in 1944 when the Internal Revenue Service placed a $650,000 lien against the Klan for back taxes. It appeared as if the Klan might finally be dead. But just 2 years later, nearly 1,000 Klansmen assembled at Stone Mountain in Georgia, the home of Klan revivals. The organizer was a 44-year-old Georgia obstetrician, Dr. Sam Green. The spectacular 1946 ceremony signaled how Klan groups would be organized in the future as self-governing units with no national affiliation. Green, a 25-year Klan veteran, once boasted, "The Klan has never been dead, and the Klan is never going to die." His words were prophetic. In the 1950s and 60s, the South became a battleground over the issues of integration and civil rights. A new breed of Klansmen signed up as soldiers in the fight against black equality.
The Klan saw themselves as patriotic.
The phrase that they hate the most is all men are created equal.
If you wanted to get elected to office, you had to have a Klan endorsement.
Most Americans would be surprised at the number of their permanent.
In the 1950s, segregation was the accepted way of Southern life. Yet separate but equal was only half true. Blacks enjoyed little equality in a time of racial unrest.
If you lived in the South in the middle 1950s and you were black, if you wanted to eat something in a downtown cafeteria, you had to stand at the end of the counter, take it out in the street and eat it. If you wanted to go to the bathroom in downtown of most big cities in the South and most small towns, you had to wait till you got home. When you got on a bus, you had to sit in the back. You lived in a world surrounded by fear, surrounded by not knowing who you were, what you could do, where you could go. It was a horrific, horrific way of life.
In 1954, the United States Supreme Court struck down school segregation in the historic Brown versus Board of Education ruling. The decision was met with a firestorm of protest from the South. The Klan rose again as the walls of segregation began to crumble.
Out here in the wildwoods, the beasts don't integrate. Out playing in the pictures in the river don't integrate. The fowl are there. They still stay segregated. They got more sense than a bunch of Supreme Court judges up there.
Brown versus Board lit the fuse under the modern Klan. And people in the South said, look, you know, the federal court has said little black boys can be in classrooms with little white girls. And that's not going to happen. And not only that, they're going to integrate swimming pools in public facilities. And next thing you know, they'll be integrating hotels and motels and restaurants and even drinking fountains. So this gave the Klan a license to grow.
Because the national organization was destroyed by the IRS in 1944, no longer was there any such thing as the Klan. Independent clans formed all around the South, each separate, each autonomous. The South was a site of constant battles over the question of integration. In their attempts to defend the racial caste system, many Klan groups became more militant. Burning a cross, long a sacred ceremony, was increasingly used as the Klan's preferred tactic of terror. The Klan used other time-honored tactics of intimidation, economic boycott, beatings, and murder. Racial violence in the aftermath of the Supreme Court ruling was staggering. While not responsible for every act, much of the terror had the letters KKK written all over it. In the early 1960s, blacks protested centuries of second-class citizenship. In lunch counter sit-ins, bus protests, and street demonstrations, their displeasure became more vocal, more united, more demanding. The stage was set for a Klan war against the civil rights movement. In 1960, the longest-lasting of all Klan groups was born when an Alabama salesman named Robert Shelton created the UKA, the United Klans of America.
He was a very clever organizer and pulled together the Klan. He was a salesman. He ran a very business-like Klan, and he is also, I believe, extremely dangerous. He's closed-mouthed. He doesn't give press interviews, loyal to the Klan to even the point of taking a prison sentence for refusing to testify before Congress and give up the Klan's membership list.
The UKA's menacing reputation was cultivated when it played a major role in the savage beating of the Freedom Riders. Early in 1961, CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, tested the 1960 Supreme Court mandate of integrated bus stations by sending a group of white and black riders on a bus pilgrimage through the South. At every station, riders would disembark and attempt to use the segregated waiting rooms, restaurants, and restrooms. When the Freedom Riders arrived at the Trailway Station in Birmingham, they were met by a white mob that included 25 members of the United Klans of America.
And of course, the Klan beat these people senseless, iron pipes, chains, Coca-Cola crates, knocked them unconscious, left them bloodied and beaten in the street, even beat innocent people. A white man comes out of the bathroom in the bus station. Bam, he's beaten. Black guy comes to the bus station to pick up his girlfriend, not a Freedom Rider. Bam, he's beaten.
It was later learned Birmingham police had prior knowledge of the attack, but officers had made a deal with the Klan not to intervene.
With the complicity of the police, they were allowed a time frame that no policeman would come in and try to stop them. The bus arrives, and for about 15 minutes, members of the UKA, as well as others, swung pipes and sticks and kicked and beat up Freedom Riders.
Pressed as to why police were not present, Police Commissioner Bull Connor explained, "It was Mother's Day. A lot of officers were home with their mothers." As the civil rights movement gained momentum, its revered leader became the Klansmen's most despised enemy.
elected Martin Luther King, and he embodied for them this civil rights movement, which was succeeding despite their best efforts, which was making their worst nightmare come true. And to them, Martin Luther King sat on top of all this, directing it, pulling the strings. So he became their public enemy #1.
When Martin Luther King and other civil rights leaders set their sights on Birmingham, Alabama, the Klan was waiting. Battleground of the civil rights era was Birmingham. In the early 1960s, the town was a racial powder keg waiting to explode.
Birmingham was then the most segregated city in America, and it had the longest history of aggressive racial violence. Birmingham was called Bombingham by people in the civil rights movement because of this long chain of unsolved bombings of black homes.
Much of the violence was perpetrated by the Ku Klux Klan. As evidenced in the beating of the Freedom Riders, the city's law enforcement was known for its working relationship with the Klan.
The Klan had more influence perhaps in Birmingham than they did in a lot of the other southern cities, and I think that contributed to the Klan's sense of bravado, where they felt like they could get away with anything, that nobody'd hold them accountable.
In this charged atmosphere, one of the cruelest of all acts of Klan terror occurred. The 16th Street Baptist Church was a symbol of the civil rights movement in Birmingham. The sacred chambers served as a staging point for demonstrations against segregated downtown public facilities. From the steps of the church, hundreds of black marchers, most of them kids, encountered the extreme force of Police Commissioner Bull Connor's attack dogs and high-pressure fire hoses. For radical segregationists like the Klan, the 16th Street Baptist Church became a special target. On a hazy Sunday morning in September of 1963, 4 young black girls attended Sunday school at the 16th Street Church. The day's Bible lesson was, "A Love That Forgives." The 4 girls moved to the basement to don choir robes when suddenly a noise shot through the church like a cannon. A bomb planted near the basement ripped through the house of worship. Under an avalanche of shattered glass, toppled brick, and tangled metal, a gruesome discovery. Cynthia Wesley, age 14. Carol Robertson, age 14. Addie Mae Collins, age 14. And Denise McNair, age 11. All were found dead, their bodies buried atop one another.
Of all the bad things that happened in the South during the Civil Rights era, to me, that was the worst. Because you had 4 innocent little girls that hadn't done anything to anybody going to worship on Sunday morning in church, and they're killed for absolutely no reason except that they were black.
Within days, police were almost certain the bombers were members of the United Klans of America. The key suspect was Dynamite Bob Chambliss, a Klansman suspected in many Birmingham bombings. After a perfunctory investigation, Chambliss and 2 other Klansmen were convicted only of the minor charge of dynamite possession. That finding was overturned on appeal. An FBI investigation resulted in no arrest, no charges. Multiplicity of Klan groups scattered throughout the South in the 1960s, one of the most bloodthirsty was the White Knights of Mississippi. The White Knights were led by Imperial Wizard Sam Bowers. Hardline Klansmen of today still revere Bowers.
Sam Bowers, 300 wanton acts of terrorism, bombs, bricks, and bullets, not bull. Bombs, bricks, and bullets. The greatest Klan leader that ever lived, Samuel Holloway Bowers.
In 1964, Mississippi was a closed society. Only 6% of the state's black populace was registered to vote. Most blacks lived in dire poverty and were subjected to intolerable, segregated public facilities. A coalition of northern civil rights groups called COFO, the Council of Federated Organizations, committed themselves to opening up Mississippi.
Civil rights organizations decided to target it on the theory that if you can break the back of segregation here, you can certainly do it in other states where the resistance is not as great. And by 1964 had decided to bring almost 1,000 young college students for what was called Freedom Summer to work on voter registration and community building. Mississippi reacted as if it were being invaded by Mongol hordes.
As the self-appointed defender of Jim Crow, the White Knights of Mississippi readied for war. Imperial Wizard Bowers issued an executive directive urging Klansmen to engage in clandestine violence against COFO leaders. The COFO leader the Klan targeted was Mickey Schwerner, a 24-year-old civil rights activist from New York. Schwerner had drawn the wrath of the White Knights since coming to Mississippi as an advance man to set up COFO offices.
They say this guy's different. First of all, he's Jewish. He's got a beard, and you didn't have beards back in the 1960s. And he's going against the social mores. You know, he's going to cafes where blacks go and eating with blacks, staying in black people's homes. And worst of all, he's an outside nigger-loving agitator, is the way I've heard him described.
Knowing the likelihood of violent resistance was high, Schwerner and two other Freedom Summer workers, 21-year-old Andrew Goodman and 21-year-old James Chaney, set out for Mississippi. On June 20, 1964, they inspected the charred remains of the Mount Zion Baptist Church near Philadelphia, Mississippi. The church had been torched by the White Knights. After leaving the church, the trio was arrested on a fabricated charge of speeding by Neshoba County Deputy Sheriff Cecil Price. As the three young men sat nervously in their cells, a Klan hit team assembled. Approximately 10:30 that evening, Schwerner, Goodman, and Chaney were released and drove off into the Mississippi night. They would never be seen alive again. Within hours, COFO workers reported the trio missing, but state authorities wrote the disappearance off as a hoax. When word of the young men's disappearance reached the White House, President Johnson took an immediate interest. J. Edgar Hoover was ordered to treat the incident as a kidnapping. The next day, a squad of FBI agents descended upon the little town of Philadelphia, Mississippi. Just one day after the disappearance, J. Edgar Hoover called LBJ with news of the first break in the case.
Mr. President, I wanted to let you know we found the car. Now, this is not known, nobody knows this at all, but the car was burned, and we do not know yet whether any bodies are inside of the car because of the intense heat. But I did want you to know that apparently what's happened, these men have been killed.
The discovery of the burned car set in motion an extensive FBI investigation. Within 2 weeks of the disappearance, 153 FBI agents combed the area and interviewed locals. Over 400 sailors dredged the swamps in search of the bodies. The FBI began infiltrating the White Knights by enlisting numerous Klansmen as paid informers. The tactic paid off. 6 weeks after their disappearance, a tip led agents to a farm where the bodies of the civil rights workers were discovered, buried in an earthen dam. With information supplied from informants and confessions from two Klansmen, the FBI pieced together what had happened. After the three victims left the jailhouse, they were followed on a country road by a Klan death squad and Deputy Price. Forcing the young men's car to stop, the deputy approached the trio and ordered them into his patrol car. The civil rights workers were then driven to a secluded part of the woods. One of the Klan members dragged Schwerner from the car. "Are you that nigger lover?" he shouted before shooting the victim at close range. Andrew Goodman was pulled up next and coldly executed. Another Klansman allegedly yelled, "Hey, save one for me." James Chaney was dragged from the car and shot. The shooter told his fellow Klansmen, "You didn't leave me anything but a nigger, but at least I killed me a nigger."
The killing of these three civil rights workers, just shows the interrelationship of police and Klansmen. Here are the people whose job it is to maintain order and to protect the citizens, kidnapping, beating, and murdering the citizens.
The FBI claimed 18 Klan members, including Sheriff Lawrence Rainey and Deputy Cecil Price, were responsible for the murders. The state of Mississippi refused to bring indictments, but the U.S. Justice Department would take action.
The sheriff, the deputy sheriff, patrolmen were involved in the crime. And when the Klan operated under color of law, that is, used the mechanisms of the state law enforcement to murder, then that gave the federal government a basis on which to assert jurisdiction, criminal jurisdiction, against the people that we believed were part of the conspiracy.
Dusting off the Ku Klux acts of the Reconstruction era, the Justice Department sought federal indictments against the Klansmen, accusing them of depriving the three victims of their civil rights. Although Klan groups of the 1960s did not wield the political power of their predecessors, the invisible empire remained active in political matters. Klan members stood firmly behind elected officials who mirrored their ideals.
I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny, and I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
In the 1950s and 60s, the political leaders, George Wallace, Ross Barnett of Mississippi, Lester Maddox of Georgia, and these were people who publicly took a stand against blacks. And what is a Klansman supposed to think? But if my leader, my state governor, is doing this, obviously he can't say take a gun and shoot him. He probably means that though, so I'll do it.
Politicians on the other side of the issue drew the wrath of the Klan. Lyndon Johnson was abhorred by Klansmen. He publicly took a stand against the Klan.
My father taught them many long years ago in Texas, and I have taught them all my life, because I believe them to threaten the peace of every community where they exist. I shall continue to fight them, because I know their loyalty is not to the United States of America, but instead to a hooded society of bigots.
Klan hatred of LBJ reached its zenith on July 2, 1964, when he signed the Civil Rights Act. Just 9 days later, the Klan invoked Johnson's name as they committed a brutal murder. Lemuel Penn was a veteran of World War II and a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves. As he and two other soldiers drove down a desolate stretch of Georgia highway, Penn was shot and killed by three members of the United Klans of America. Klansman James Lackey later confessed that when they spotted the three black soldiers on the road, one of the Klansmen said, "They must be some of President Johnson's boys. I'm going to kill me a nigger." As so often happened in the previous 100 years, an all-white jury found the Klansmen not guilty.
This is the phenomenon of jury nullification. The jury hears the evidence. It's fairly conclusive. He did it. There's proof, witnesses, testimony, and because what he did is popular among the jurors, or fits into the worldview of the jurors themselves, at a period in the South, all white and all men, then the perpetrator is let free. Let free with the blessings of the jury and the blessings of the society from which the juror and the defendant are commonly drawn.
As was the case in Mississippi, the Justice Department appealed to the Supreme Court for permission to prosecute the Klansmen for violation of Penn's civil rights. The depth to which the FBI infiltrated the Klan was demonstrated by another tragic killing on a lonely highway. On March 25th, 1965, 12,000 protesters gathered in Montgomery, Alabama. It was the successful conclusion of the Selma to Montgomery March for Black voting rights. That evening, Viola Liuzzo, a 39-year-old woman from Detroit and mother of 5, shuttled demonstrators back to Selma. 4 Klansmen spotted Liuzzo and a black man traveling together. They chased the pair down. Shots were fired. Liuzzo was struck in the head and killed. Her passenger survived. Unlike previous FBI investigations of Klan crimes that took weeks or months to solve, the Liuzzo murder was closed with amazing speed. The day after the murder, President Johnson went on national television with an announcement.
Arrests were made a few minutes ago of 4 Ku Klux Klan members in Birmingham, Alabama, charging them with conspiracy to violate the civil rights of the murdered woman. Mrs. Liuzzo went to Alabama to serve the struggles for justice. She was murdered by the enemies of justice, who for decades have used the rope and the gun and the tar and the feathers to terrorize their neighbors. So if Klansmen hear my voice today, let it be both an appeal and a warning to get out of the Ku Klux Klan now and return to a decent society before it is too late.
Johnson failed to mention the reason the FBI was able to solve the murder with such haste. Gary Rowe, one of the 4 Klansmen in the car, was a paid FBI informant. 3 Klansmen were indicted for murder. Their trial ended when an all-white, all-male jury could not reach a verdict. A second trial resulted in not guilty verdicts. As in previous cases, the Justice Department prepared to attempt federal indictments. As Klan victims in the war against integration piled up, efforts to prosecute Klansmen on federal charges began to pay off. In late 1965, 3 Klansmen were convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison for violating the civil rights of Viola Liuzzo. 2 years after the vicious murder of Colonel Lemuel Penn, 2 members of the UKA were convicted of violating the veterans' civil rights. In October of 1967, 18 members of the White Knights of Mississippi stood trial for conspiring to deny Mickey Schwerner, Andrew Goodman, and James Chaney of their civil rights. Imperial Wizard Sam Bowers and 6 other Klansmen were found guilty. Bowers was sentenced to the maximum, 10 years. The White Knights of Mississippi fell into disarray. The combination of lengthy FBI probes, congressional inquiries, and Bowers' incarceration fatally crippled the most violent Klan group in the South. The House Un-American Activities Committee, which had investigated the Klan in 1965, released its report in 1967. It stated what most in the South had known for 100 years. We are forced to the conclusion that the traditionally ugly image of the Ku Klux Klan is essentially valid, preaching love and peace, yet practicing hatred and violence, claiming fidelity to the Constitution, yet systematically abrogating the rights of other citizens. Their record seems clearly one of moral bankruptcy and staggering hypocrisy. By the end of the 1960s, the Ku Klux Klan was a conquered force. The Klan had lost the battle against the civil rights movement.
The Klan was brought down in a variety of ways, primarily through the success of the movement. They proved to be ineffective. They killed people, they murdered people, they intimidated people, but they could not stop this onrushing tide of freedom. They just couldn't stop it. And, you know, they could not serve the purpose they told people they were serving.
As the decade came to a close, there were scores of violent acts attributed to the Klan that remained unsolved and unprosecuted. The cruelest of these was the bombing of Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church. Bill Baxley recalls the day in 1963 when the lives of 4 innocent black girls came to a violent end.
When it happened, I was a student in law school, and I got physically ill, and I hoped from that moment forward that I might do something somewhere, someday, to help bring whoever did this to justice.
Baxley's chance came in 1970 when he was elected Alabama's Attorney General. Within a week of being sworn in, Baxley reopened the case. Over the course of a grueling 7-year investigation, Baxley zeroed in on the original suspect, Klansman Dynamite Bob Chambliss. Baxley's aggressive style won him no friends among the Klan. When the Attorney General received a racist letter protesting his continued investigation, Baxley replied on official state letterhead, "My response to your letter of February 19, 1976 is, kiss my..." In 1977, Bill Baxley met Dynamite Bob Chambliss in a court of law. 15 years after the brutal killing of 4 young girls, an Alabama jury found Chambliss guilty of murder. He was sent to prison, where he died. In 1974, the Klan's national membership was estimated to be only 1,500, but new faces would arise from the ashes and lead the Klan to yet another revival. With sanctioned segregation a relic of the past, a debilitated Klan searched for new issues to battle. In the 1970s, they seized upon the controversies of affirmative action, reverse discrimination, and forced busing. The Klan exploited these issues at public rallies, but were often met with violent opposition.
Any trouble. We just want the Klan to go. But we will not have it. We will not tolerate it. If we have to die here, we'll die here. But there will not be any Klan. Today, tomorrow, never. Death to the Klan.
The Klan was crippled and in need of guidance. They found a new brand of leader in David Duke. Duke was not a typical Klansman. He rarely wore robes, never donned a hood. He seldom was caught using racial epithets. College-educated and good-looking, Duke set out to clean up the image of the Klan.
Well, we're not anti-black so much as we're pro-white. And there's 1,000 different organizations, it seems like, that are working for the interest of the blacks and other minorities. And we're simply an organization that's working for the interest and the ideals and the culture of the white people.
He's really the embodiment of the modern Klan. He's the white-collar, button-down, well-dressed, pressed Klan. And he does a great deal to revive the image of the Klan, to make it seem not quite so bad. These are not really bad people. Look at David Duke. He could be the boy next door. He is the Klan next door.
As Duke worked to build a political empire, many of his top lieutenants grew critical of their leader's media attention. Some deserted and formed their own, more militant clans. Incidents of Klan-related violence increased. The most shocking incident of Klan vengeance took place in Greensboro, North Carolina. On November 3rd, 1979, members of the Communist Workers' Party prepared for an anti-Klan rally. An alliance of Klansmen and Nazi Party members arrived by caravan. Insults escalated into fisticuffs. Moments later, Klansmen inflicted deadly vengeance upon their rivals. Members of the Communist Workers' Party were fatally wounded. A jury decided the shooters acted in self-defense.
The murders in Greensboro really shocked the civil rights community into an awareness that the Klan had not gone away. And this event was one of the most shocking and violent incidents connected with the revival of the Fourth Era Klan.
In the early 1980s, many Klansmen traded in their robes for the camouflage fatigues of a paramilitary uniform. Texas Klan leader Louis Beam opened paramilitary training camps.
So Louis Beam, he was the bridge between the Klan of the past and the extremist domestic terrorist of the present and the future, and that would be the malicious so-called patriot movement in America today. He had as many as 3,000 armed people training in 5 separate training camps in Texas for a day that would be a revolution, a race war.
As the Klan gained strength, several organizations fought back. The most influential of the Klan monitoring groups was started by the Southern Poverty Law Center. After representing a black victim injured in a 1979 Klan melee in Decatur, Alabama, the Law Center's executive director, Morris Dees, created Klan Watch.
So I decided after we did the case to see if we couldn't set up an organization to debunk this whole thing about this new Klan, and to show it was simply just the old Klan with new rhetoric. They still resort to violence.
Klan Watch tracked Klan activities and pursued litigation of Klan crimes. The most important case in Dee's fight against the Klan resulted in the demise of the longest-lasting Klan group in America. Shelton's United Klans of America were terror personified in the 1960s. But unlike other clans of that era which succumbed to investigations and prosecutions, the UKA managed to survive. But in March of 1981, the unraveling began. Several members of the Mobile, Alabama chapter of the UKA were enraged after the court case of a black man accused in the murder of a white police officer ended in a mistrial. Benny Hayes, The titan of UKA Unit 900 was quoted as saying, "If a black man can get away with killing a white man, we ought to be able to get away with killing a black man." That night, two young Klansmen, 17-year-old Tiger Knowles and 26-year-old Henry Hayes, went looking for a black victim. Any black victim. While cruising the streets of Mobile, they found 19-year-old Michael Donald. The young man was kidnapped and driven to a desolate spot in the woods.
He got the rope around his neck, and they put their boots up against either side of his head, pulled on that rope to wet any breath left in him. And then to make sure he was dead, they took a razor knife and slit his throat, threw him in the trunk of the car, carried him back over, and hung him from a tree in Mobile. It was a lynching of its, classic sense.
The crime shocked the community. The barbaric murder of this innocent young man was as vicious, devious, as hideous as any in the long history of the Ku Klux Klan. Based on Tiger Knowles' confession, he and his accomplice were convicted of murder. To most, it appeared the case was closed. Morris Dees felt differently. He encouraged the victim's mother, Beulah May Donald, to file a civil lawsuit against the United Klans of America. Because UKA leaders encouraged violent and murderous acts, Dees theorized the Klan organization was also liable. Mrs. Donald agreed to the lawsuit. The 1987 trial lasted but 4 days. Several Klansmen testified they had been directed to commit acts of harassment and intimidation. Tiger Knowles described the murder of Michael Donald and told how the Klan had encouraged him to commit acts of violence. As he stepped down from the stand, the judge allowed the Klansmen to address the court.
Then he turned to Mrs. Donald and spoke her name. And he began to cry, and his lips quivered, and he started sobbing, and said, basically, he begged her forgiveness for what he'd done to her son, Michael. And she just kind of rocked back in her chair and looked at him there, and it was kind of a low whisper she said to him in front of that jury. She said, I've already forgiven you. And it was a pretty powerful moment, as you can imagine, in that courtroom. It wasn't a dry eye, I promise you, at our counsel table and in that jury box, and I saw that old judge brush back a tear.
The jury returned after just 4 hours of deliberation and announced a stunning $7 million verdict against the United Klans of America. The most durable of all Klan groups had been destroyed by a Southern jury.
The Klan really just had a national headquarters, 7,000 square foot building and 10 acres of land, and that's about it. And that's what Mrs. Donald got. A black woman ended up with a deed to probably the most dangerous and violent Klan organization in modern history.
The Donald judgment was a critical blow to Klans everywhere. Sporadic incidents of violence continued, but Klansmen realized there was a lot to lose by pursuing terror. They could lose their money, their freedom, even their life. On June 6, 1997, Henry Hayes was executed for the murder of Michael Donald. He was the first Klansman in modern history to be put to death for the Klan murder of an African American. With a national membership of just over 5,000, the Ku Klux Klan today is but a shadow of its former self. Gone are the days when it wielded great political and social power. Gone are the days when it could commit wanton acts of terror without fear of censure. But the legacy of the Klan remains.
Today, you can see a number of groups who are like the Klansmen, but they simply are not wearing the white sheets. They take the same stands, they believe in the same things, they are willing to commit violence, they just don't wear the sheets because the sheets now look silly.
History suggests the Klan will not disappear. They have died many deaths only to be reborn whenever many in white America felt threatened. Reawakened as the ideals of intolerance and racial superiority are taught to succeeding generations.
You people see what I got in my arms? This is what this organization is about. Our children. Our children's children. Each and every one of you is take a look at this pure white baby. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. You raise your children as white Christians.
It's just really sad because here you're taking kids who presumably are innocent, who grow up trusting others, who don't have any preconceived notion about who other people are, and indoctrinating them in this Nazi, this fascist philosophy. It's just horrific to think of poisoning these little minds.
Whether at the peak of power or barely afloat, the Klan philosophy of hatred, of violence, has endured since its beginnings in a small Tennessee town.
We still will not mix up with a bunch of black savages. I'm not one of these freeloading niggers out here living on Granite Road in the housing project.
They were brought here as slaves. The only reason that they're free is because there's some liberal teaching Jew-minded idiots that decided to free them.
And we're simply an organization that's working for the interest and the ideals and the culture of the white people.
Look out, nigger! The Klan is getting bigger.
White power! White power!
White power! I'll tell you this. The Klan's here because we've been here for 131 years. The legacy is that we've had a lot of hangings, a lot of bombings, a lot of shootings. That don't bother me at all. If somebody wants to go out here and kill a nigger or something, I don't. They're not our equal. They have no right to breathe free air in America. This is not the Boy Scouts. This ain't the Cub Scouts. This is the Ku Klux Klan. If you don't like what we're saying, then go away. You know who we are. You know what our history is.
I don't know if you can count up the list of victims. I mean, there's no list available. It's the hundreds of thousands, I guess, of people physically intimidated, killed, maimed, butchered, burned out, terrorized, and I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. But what they do is upset the fabric of what we hope is going to be a democracy, a place where everyone has his or her place, and a place where everyone's voice is at least listened to. They can't tolerate that. And by their acts, they've disrupted the fabric of our democracy. They made it less than perfect. They've done a great deal to disrupt the peaceful development of this country.
The Ku Klux Klan is America's first society of hate. Although diminished, the Klan cannot be ignored. Their bigotry lies bubbling under the surface, eager to...
You've just been watching the MrSan44Man Detroit Raw Show, only on YouTube, a Positivity in Effect Productions.